Okay, so my final question
Yes.
is, can you see or track enlightenment in the brain?
Well, I I would say that we can track certain elements of it. And in some sense we have done that when we were talking earlier about the feeling of unity and clarity and so forth. These are elements that we can look at, and then when we do brain scans of people who have these different experiences and so forth, we can allude to those kinds of changes. The reason that your question is challenging is that um, the ultimate aspect of the experience is a subjective experience. And
Mm,
there's no way for me to tap someone on the shoulder and say, are you at enlightenment yet? No. Okay, I'll come back in a few minutes. How about now? And of
right,
course, if you were in the moment of enlightenment and I tapped you on the shoulder, it would probably disrupt that experience.
right.
So it is, from a scientific perspective, it's very challenging to really ever capture one of those experiences in a direct way.
Mm,
So I think we can make, but I think we can make inferences. We can study elements of those experiences. We can study practices that lead to those experiences. And one last answer to your question is that there's an intriguing piece to what enlightenment is, which is that because there's two kinds of enlightenment, so to speak. There's the moment of enlightenment,
mm.
the moment that the shift occurs, but then there is being an enlightened being.
Yes,
And so arguably that in some ways would be easier to study because I could take 15 or 20 people who are enlightened and
right.
compare them to 20 people who are not enlightened. That would be a relatively easier thing to do. But that's fraught with its own problems too, which is to say, well, who's to decide whether or not they are enlightened or not?
Right,
Who made that decision? And was it them? Was it a
right.
man, their Zen master? Was it their mother? I mean, who was it who decided that they were in fact enlightened? And how does one, make that determination? So, and that even gets to a whole other level of the neurotheology world and the field of scholarship of neurotheology, which are definitions. And in
Mm,
some sense, we've been kind of dancing around these terms. You've been using terms like mystical or enlightenment or something like that. What exactly does that mean?
right.
And if I were to ask, if I were to convene a group of neuroscientists and a group of theologians and a group of Buddhist monks and a group of Christian mystics and a group of Sufi, I mean, and a group of anthropologists, and they would all come up with different definitions of what they
Right.
mean by mystical, spiritual, religious, and so forth. So there are a lot of wonderful challenges. I mean, that to me is what makes this whole field very exciting, and hopefully gives me another 30 years of things to look at and do. Again, there's just a lot for us to sort of unpack and to see how all of these different things fit together. And that's what the future holds. I guess there are hopefully more studies, and we'll get better techniques and better
Yeah.
approaches, and some of those better techniques will be neuroimaging. Some of them will be the ways in which we ask questions. Maybe there are some ways in which we do our own internal contemplative processes that
Mm.
can yield knowledge and information in systematic ways. So stay tuned. There's a lot for us to there's a long way to go.